Welcome to the Digital PR Show. You want the future of marketing and PR? You've come to the right place. We're spilling all the secrets on what it really takes to crush it in PR, digital marketing, and agency life. No jargon and no gatekeeping. Whether you're building a brand, scaling a biz, or just here for the hot takes, we've got you covered. Let's get digital.
Welcome to the CIPR podcast. I'm Ryan O'Donnell, joined by Christina Pilarski and Kendel. How do I pronounce your last name?
Lavallee?
Lavallee? Because I was about to say Lavelle, but there is nothing more embarrassing than mispronouncing someone's last name, which actually kind of perfectly leads into our topic today, which is brand credibility and authenticity. And it's little things like that that really help sort of build those foundational blocks. I'm curious because for someone myself who's new in the world of PR, directly in the actual involved of like making public relations, I'm curious because I haven't had a chance to really build the building blocks of a brand yet. I've kind of just jumped in at a point where those blocks are there and you want to keep them going. So I'm curious for you two, what is it like to kind of be at the beginning when you set those foundations and those bedrocks for credibility?
That's a big one. Kenny, do you want me to go first?
Please.
It's really like, what I will say is my perception is that people think it's easy, right? Even CIPR. Oh, I'm starting a business and I think it should be like this, or I don't like this color, or, I think it should speak to this expertise or that expertise. And as you start unpacking it with a client, you feel like the nuance, but also the like alternative voices, right? Like I'm trying to think of a good client example without saying it. So, like a tourism-based client. And I feel like we have many of these in this space where we've started with them from either the ground up or like in the middle of some sort of big shift or rebrand or evolution. And you get around the table and you start to have this conversation and you have one voice, typically CEO, typically director, someone high up who has one very distinct feeling about the brand, about the perception, about what the public thinks. And then you go around the room and really quickly it becomes deconstructed. And really quickly now you have the voices of, well, like actually on the ground, this is what we're hearing from people. Or actually like in our departmental meeting, this is what we actually think and what we hear. Or the data tells us that this is actually. So, there is this kind of like gut feeling. And you guys know I love a good gut feeling moment. But like when it comes to like building a brand, to me, I always try to like move people away from, okay, what feels right, and like actually let's dig into the data. So I like think there's this really cool intersection of like marketing and PR when talking about brand credibility, because PR can be a little bit abstract, a little bit qualitative. There are some numbers, there are things, but like marketing actually like has the hard numbers, shows you what's working, shows you what isn't. And I feel like those two, marry and really paint the picture of where you're at.
I'll add to that. And I think it's funny that you just mentioned the intersection of marketing and PR, because my background is marketing. And I was going to say similar to marketing, but I was like, God forbid we start a debate about PR isn't marketing. So, I know that. But I will say, in building a marketing campaign or a marketing strategy, it is backed by that data, and you're making decisions and recommendations based on like actual facts. And so when you get around a table with those people, it's very easy to back up and have rational like reasons why you're making some of the decisions. And like you said, I feel like PR is similar to marketing in that everyone has an opinion. It's public facing. Staff have an opinion. The public have an opinion. And even if like you feel like your campaign or like your messaging is like bang on, people are going to interpret it differently and like get something different from it than you intended. But I do really feel like leaning into the data side of things and having that strong, like be able to rationalize your decisions helps build that trust, right? So it's not just a gut feeling. A gut feeling's also great, but when you can back it up with that fact as well, that helps build trust.
Let's talk about trust because, it's when you ask someone how important is trust, duh, it's the most important thing. Like it is what binds not just our industry, all industries together. Without it, something crumbles. But what do you think trust actually looks or feels like in these, client relationships? Because when you're on shaky ground or something goes wrong, trust is often what we fall back on to get something right or to have patience where there's gaps. And then when you don't have it, it is so obvious. So I'm curious for you two, what do you think trust looks like or feels like? Maybe it's a gut feeling when we're in these client relationships and building them.
Yeah, I think for me, it's funny. We were all in a client meeting this morning where I said a famous CIPR line, "We are not precious." I think sometimes there is this, if you're not working down the hall from someone or you haven't, broken bread, so to speak, that you've got to put a mask up or be delicate or dance around things. And it's like, I think it's important to put that out there. Like when we're building PR strategy or we're trying to work on brand reputation or credibility in a marketplace, we need to be really honest, right? Like it's a little bit of like walking into the lawyer's office and you want them to build the best defense, but you're like not telling them that like, actually you are the murderer, right? So it's like the same thing. I want the client to be able to have the hard conversation and us to like really dive into, Kenny, to your point, like the data, the metrics, let's have a hard conversation about what's working and what isn't working. Or, hey, let's continue to have like the devil's advocates in the room. I think it's tremendously important. And I think that like this would be my like almost checkpoint for people as they're talking about their agency or the people they work with. It's like, what does a hard conversation feel like? And I don't mean like the hardest, the you're fired. I mean like what's the hard conversation? Something isn't working. Probably both parties know. Or do you have the respect and the confidence in one another to be able to say, great idea, but like, have we thought about this? I think it's, again, it was like, we're not precious. We're just people. Like, tell us if that was a shitty thing or not.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate the blunt honesty from clients. I do feel like that is a mark of trust with us, that we aren't going to take offense to it. And like ultimately, those conversations are helping us bring things to a place of like excellence, I would say, being able to have that two-way dialogue about things. It's been a struggle for me to give that type of feedback in the past. I don't want to like hurt feelings. And I've been on the other side of an agency where you're like, I don't know, you're just trying to play nice, right? But ultimately that doesn't get anyone anywhere. So trust to me, especially like in a client situation, is like the feeling of being open, not being afraid to give or receive feedback, and being open to listening both to what they have to say, but then like trusting yourself enough to also provide the rationale, again, why a decision was made, because sometimes that is all it takes too, right? It's like the instant reaction might be like, I hate it. But then it's like, oh, once you understand why it was done, then it just builds upon that. Like you said, it's the building blocks, right? And I think in lots of cases, that just takes time with a client and with any human in any relationship. It takes time to build those building blocks. And so I just think over time, it's just one of those things.
I feel like authenticity is a really important way to be able to have those difficult conversations, because we show our true nature in moments when we have to put our foot down, right? So if you're kind of beating around the bush, or you're not being honest about kind of like who you are, how you do business, those sorts of things, and then a difficult situation presents itself and you now need to turn and put your foot down. Well, if you aren't being honest about who you are and how you conduct your business before that moment, it's going to be a real rude awakening when you do. And it can be a real shock, and it can be a real shock to the system and the relationship if that's the true nature moment. Whereas if you build that authenticity and the trust early on, when we face those moments of difficulty or a more serious conversation, it's almost like you're prepared for it. I think the best example I have of this is, I remember a couple of jobs previously, somebody I worked with noticed I was having a really bad day and I was spiraling. I was ranting in the meeting. I had no control over what I was saying. I had no idea what I was doing. We had a really good relationship, still do. And because we did, he had the confidence to literally yell at me in the meeting to say, hey, stop. Like he did it as if it was my father. And you know what it did? I shut up. It was like a slap in the face, but it reset my system. But if I didn't know who he was really, or those relationship and that trust hadn't been built previously, it would have sent me into a further spiral. But that's, I think, really like for me, a true showing of what actual trust and credibility feels like, because you have the foundation to be honest about with each other. And then when those moments of stress or difficulty or present themselves, you can be yourself and be way more efficient in addressing whatever the issue is.
I'm a big fan of no surprises. You guys know this is like baked into our CIPR vision traction organizer and our rocks every year. But for me, it's like, it's in so many situations. I feel like internally it's no surprises. And, you know, it shouldn't be a surprise. If there's a client issue, usually I'm getting a phone call. Well, I shouldn't be surprised, right? Like I should be working with you guys on the team and understand here's where there's a tough situation, or here's where there's some friction points, or, okay, we have a progress report. I know where things are at. Okay, I know where the reports are in a folder. And so if a client calls, I am able to have the best interest of my team at the forefront, because I'm not surprised. I'm ready for this conversation. Karen has phoned me and said, ooh, you know, Joe isn't happy. And I can, you know, okay, let's have the conversation. And then I think on the other side too, from a client perspective, it's like no surprises for them. Like I think I was very deliberate in making choices around, okay, we're joining the WSI network. Some agencies choose to white label that whole experience. Hey, that works for some. For me, it doesn't. I don't want a surprise. I don't want a client to be surprised about, you know, Francois, who's our absolute SEO king from South Africa, joining and it's dark outside and literally there was a giraffe walking behind him once on a video call. Amazing. But like no surprises. Here's our international expert that you have, right? Similar to, you know, we have a few team members that we lovingly call our Philippines CIPR office. I don't want a client to be surprised by, oh, you're getting a two-factor authentication from the Philippines, right? Like I'm well equipped to have those conversations. How can I, you know, scale a business at a reasonable price without raising my clients' prices astronomically? Well, it's about international help and expertise. And so again, I feel like that narrative weaves through so much. Like no one should be surprised. Like if you're building a brand, if you're building credibility, if you're building trust, if you're continually surprised by like the actions, the content, the delivery of what is coming out of a brand, then you are not building trust. But if you're like, hey, this narrative ties together. Yeah, I remember they mentioned something about this. Now you're storytelling. Now you're creating the story.
Yeah. Now let's spice things up by bringing AI into the mix, because this is where like it's in the word artificial. It's in the name, right? And so as more and more agencies adopt AI as a tool to help them conduct and make business more efficient, that will put people off sometimes. Like it just will. Now we've had many conversations about how to put people at ease and like really show them what we're doing and how we're using it or what AI can offer them. But how do you think AI is impacting the trust as a critical pillar in agency relationships? Is it a negative to it? Is it sort of bringing a positive eventually, but we have a bit of a road or a speed bump on the way to get there? Like, how do you see it sort of impacting trust as a whole?
I guess I'll take this one. So, you know, just recently, our team underwent a little bit of an AI policies and procedures update. And that's where we took our staff through a survey and also the leadership through a survey. And then we were able to look at that data and really kind of update our AI policies internally. A big thing that came from that as one of the most important kind of values for CIPR when it comes to AI is transparency. So exactly what we're talking about being upfront about it, having it in our website, in our contracts, and being very clear on how and when we're using it. I do think that there are going to be agencies and companies out there that are using it discreetly, that aren't open with it. And maybe that's just because they have no clear boundaries or guardrails with it. So staff are maybe using it without permission or they're afraid to admit it. So there's definitely like some work to do around that. But in terms of how we're using it, I think we're using it in a way that is very open and honest. And we have those important checkpoints throughout our processes, right? Where we have the humans in the loop. And I was speaking with Peter about this earlier today. It's like, it actually isn't just spitting content out slop. We talk about this a lot as a group. There's a lot of work that goes into ensuring that the content it's outputting is quality work. And Ryan, I think you quoted it best the other day. If the AI feels too easy, then you're probably missing a step. So it does take an incredible amount of iteration, of working with the client to kind of perfect it, and then also just ensuring that humans are in the loop. So in terms of how we're using it, I guess it goes back to the transparency, authenticity. And I do think a lot of companies and organizations have like a long road ahead of them when it comes to doing this. But luckily, that's also something we can help people with.
I think it's that upfront piece again, right? You know, where does Jay live? He lives in the Philippines. It's not like he's in my basement, right? Like I said, are you using AI? Yes.
Yes.
Right? Like I, you know, again, no surprises, authentic, honest, and I think it is made us have some really interesting conversations with clients. Those who kind of sit on maybe a negative end of the AI spectrum where they're moving to a more positive place. Those that are like, you know, let's call them like the Peter evangelists that are way on the other side that are like, oh my God, you should try these other 5 things we found. And it's like, oh, we've got our policies in place. These are the ones we're using. And again, I just think, so I feel like this episode is a little bit of like, here's your tip sheet in terms of what to ask the contractors you're working with, but ask them, do you have an AI responsible use policy? Are you using AI? Do you have policies and procedures? Like, we are in a time and space where that is a completely fair question in a sales cycle, in a, you know, even just a project that you're working on with someone. It has changed the industry. And I think most smart contractors, consultants, employees, humans will be able to explain why, how, when they have used it and how they've used it to better themselves. And if they can't, cue the hard conversation. And for me, a lot of those hard conversations don't start with the person. It starts with the process. So, you know, if we were a different looking agency and I, you know, was under a rock and found out everyone's using AI, I wouldn't set everyone on fire. I would go and look at the process and go, wow, I'm behind on the times. Of course, my team is going to use tools that are going to help them do their job better. Even something, I feel like we pump up Riverside all the time, but even something like Riverside, we used to do a full podcast on Zoom because that was the tool available. That's what worked. And it was fine. Absolutely fine. Now we have Riverside with great AI capabilities of pulling out short clips, creating that, you know, Kendel, as you call it, the seed content and pushing it out through many different mechanisms. So it's like, if you're able to, and I don't want to use the word justify your use of AI because I think that's a slippery slope, but if you're able to show the value and you're able to show that, okay, before this is what a podcast looked like, and this is how much time it took me to do that stuff. Now this is what a podcast looked like, and I've 10x'd the social content, or I've done whatever I've done. I don't know, as a business owner, as a client, as a leader, it's like, well, obviously, yeah, leverage that.
Yeah. I think, Christina, you told me right around the time I got hired that, you know, it used to be writing a press release took a day, like an entire day to get it just right. Now, I mean, this is the thing, right? You could plug it into ChatGPT and get it in 5 minutes. No, but now you can do this process where you get the foundation, you get your eyes, you get your input in an hour, 2 hours, and then it's off immediately for client eyes. And then if they have feedback, you incorporate it. So now the content is getting more collaborative because there's less time to work, or you're not spending as much time worrying about building it as you are collaborating to finish it, which is great. That makes it really, really fun to use and really changed my perspective on it. And it's interesting because it's kind of part of a larger strategy, I would say, in building trust, because like you said, we're being upfront about what we're doing, so there's no surprises. And then what you're delivering on can help be a proof of concept. And I'm curious, what are some other strategies that you think can help build trust during, you know, in a digital PR space? We've talked about a few already, but is there sort of like a secret sauce, the secret recipe that Plankton is after from Mr. Krabs? You know, what is the secret sauce that the formula that maybe can help people build some trust?
That's a good question. I don't know why. I keep thinking of, Kendel, your example with a client who questioned AI because they had just, you're building content for them. They have just, a little bit of knowledge about AI, what they see. And you then had this conversation around like, well, we're training the AI. We're training it on your voice. We're training to be better. So like, if you're like, Ryan Tier, yeah, throw the press release in ChatGPT. 5 minutes later, you've got a press release. But it's like, we're building these customizations within our AI tools that are able to pull out the nuance, able to really articulate and pull from notes, interviews, different spaces to create this great piece of content. Again, it doesn't happen overnight, but clients that we've had for the last decade certainly benefit from some pretty bang on drafts of content up front, because it's not only like, it's not all our heads. Now we've like put it into the machine and the machine is making it better. I don't know. That doesn't really answer your question, but like, right? Like there's this trust. I don't want to say like trust the machine, but like not the like the actual machine, but like the process machine.
Yes. Yes, exactly. You can't always trust GPT. Like there was a client, and it's so funny. It's a client there is so much content logged into that GPT. There is a million examples of all the work they've done. That GPT should know every human being that not only is in the company, but has ever shopped there. Like there is so much context, and it's still got the name of the CEO wrong. I'm like, what? How? Stuff does happen. So the trust in the process is that we will be able to catch those things and make sure that, it's all good, rather than trust that GPT can do it all on its own.
I have a few thoughts to add there too, because we're talking a lot about like what we're doing is, it's kind of like that long term, like we're building a relationship where these are the things we're talking about, is like, it takes time to build that. But bringing it right back to like the start, the foundation, the building blocks when we're starting off with a project, like how do we build that, like kind of like instant trust, I guess. And this is where I just want to like show you both out, because you are our two like digital PR experts on the team. And I think you both have a really great ability of like, you are both very authentic people in how you present yourselves. Like there's no mask, there's no anything. You come across as like real people. And even like even in your messages to clients that I like witness and see in the emails, like it's very just like friendly and approachable and human. And I think like above all, especially with the rise of AI content, and I think people are over relying on it and getting AI to help them like draft like a 1-sentence reply to emails and, a text message, right? Like people are. I think you both, I just want to call you out, because I think in terms of building trust, like at the very, very base level with people, I think you guys are both nailing it. So kudos.
Thanks.
Right
back. I think a good example, you can see it in Christina's room and you can 1000% see it in my room here, is like, yes, if I maybe like in 2005, if I was doing a virtual call, I would not have my movie rack and my Evil Dead figure and all those things behind me. But in today's age, like I'm not afraid to highlight that when clients are interviewing me or chatting with me, that I'm a giant nerd. I'm not afraid to show that. It's part of who I am. It's part of what I deliver. It's part of how I communicate, and it's personality. Sure, there are times where in the virtual background can hide that, and it's all good, well and good. But there's like little things that you can do to just show off. I will never forget, actually, my mom worked at a very large oil and gas company. And I remember I went to go meet her for lunch, and I was actually nervous walking into this building, like hoity-toity, tight ties. And then I walked into the CEO's office. I can't even imagine how much money this guy makes. This is like, like billionaire probably. I walk in and the first thing I see is the 9,000 piece, whatever it is, Millennium Falcon Lego set on his wall. Like in this one, like you could not be more successful than this guy is in business. And that's right on his wall there. Right. So even those people aren't afraid to show a little bit of who they are and what they do in their business. And so, I mean, I might be a little bit much, but it is a nice way to just set the scene immediately as, okay, I can kind of get an idea of who I'm chatting with.
Yeah. I mean, even the little things like, this last year we've transformed our e-signatures to just have a little spice in there of who we are, right? And if you have ever got an email from any of us, you can quickly see. And I will be the first to admit, when we did that exercise, I learned a lot about everyone. There were little tidbits in there, and I was like, okay, this is important to this person. I never knew. Right? So it's like, again, I think in a world that is largely virtual now, being influenced by AI all the time, the more a brand or a person can put and infuse themselves into things, one, I feel like keeps us grounded as humans. We're all human. There's all stuff going on. But two, back to kind of your original questions around building that authentic brand, that's how you're doing it. Like there's no more smoke and mirrors. Yeah, I can put a virtual background on, but you'll know there's something going on behind there. Right? So again, the smoke and mirrors are over. So just deal with the mess.
Deal with the mess. Yeah. Be authentic, be yourself. Don't hide anything. Don't be, just be honest and open, and it'll pay dividends down the road. I think we kind of summed it up perfectly right there.
There you go.
Amazing. Well, thank you both so much for your time. And every time we finish one of these conversations, it gives me an idea of what to talk about next time. So looking forward to it as always.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Well, there you have it. That's a wrap on this episode of the Digital PR Show, where the future is digital and so are we. Make sure you subscribe or catch us on socials at CIPR Comms or on the web at CIPR Communications.